community like Crozet, Virginia, an intimate, tiny community that's a part of Albemarle County with limited road infrastructure and schools that are tremendously already overpopulated. Ladies and gentlemen, what happens if you add more housing density to Crozet and crowd the schools even further? Isn't the entire value proposition of why mommies and daddies move to Crozet? It's because of the schools, right? Aren't the schools the value proposition of why mommies and daddies move their families to Crozet? Everyone says it. Schools. Western Albemarle. Western schools are nicknamed Stab West for a reason, because they're great. But what happens if you overpopulate the schools to a point that the teachers cannot offer the learning, the performance of learning as they should? Doesn't that water down the value proposition? We'll talk about that on the program today. A lot to cover on the show, including Toys R Us having a new owner. How about that, boys and girls? How about the emotional roller coaster ride that is the UVA men's basketball team? That's going to be on my brain today. You beat Syracuse and you lose to COVID. The team that wins the NCAA tournament is not going to be the best team. It's going to be the team that manages COVID the best. Okay? The number one opponent for Gonzaga, the number one opponent for UVA, for Michigan, for North Carolina is COVID. It's not the other teams in the bracket. We'll talk about that on the program today. Florida's economy is booming. Did Florida make the right decisions with how they handled COVID? Everyone was ripping Florida. I'm talking, we were ripping Florida. These people are opening restaurants. These people are allowing people to eat inside without masks on. Florida's just the Wild Wild West, is what everybody was saying. Well, folks, we now have numbers of the state of Florida and how they have managed COVID-19, and these numbers may surprise you. So much to cover on the program. 719 Blenheim Avenue in Belmont is now under contract. We're talking less than 1,300 square feet and a listing price that's flirting with $400,000. We'll talk about that listing, and how about Maya Restaurant? My good buddy Peter Castiglione is hiring again at Maya. So much to cover on the I Love Seville show. Give the show a like and a share, a like and a share, a like and a share. Anywhere you are watching, I'm fired up today. J-Dubs, we can rock and roll in T-minus 10 seconds. Give me 10 seconds. Judah Wickhauer, Judah Wickhauer, Judah Wickhauer, I love you, and we will get started. You can tell I'm fired up, can't you, Judah? It's Monday. I missed you. Did you have a good weekend? Judah's like, any weekend that I don't have to spend with Jerry is a good weekend. He's smiling. He didn't say that, but I read his brain. It's good to see you, my friend. 7 seconds, J-Dubs, and I can do it. Like and share, guys. Hit that like button. Share it to your friends. Tell your friends about the show. They deserve to be knowledgeable about Charlottesville and Central Virginia just like you do. The whole point of this show is to give knowledge to you, the viewer and the listener. Who doesn't need knowledge of this community? That's what all we do, is we bring you knowledge. J-Dubs, let's do it.
Quiet on the set.
Good Monday afternoon, guys. My name is Jerry Miller, and welcome to the I Love Seville show. We are live in Charlottesville, the Commonwealth, the country, and the world on the I Love Seville network, presented and powered by crazy fast internet, Ting Fiber Internet. Ting, the best of the best. Get the best of the best through this link, iloveseville.ting.com. iloveseville.ting.com gives you the best internet in our town at the best price possible, a $288 reduction in price. So much to cover on the show. How about the emotional roller coaster ride of Tony Bennett and the UVA men's basketball team? You beat Syracuse. Reese Beekman hits a game winner from downtown when Beekman's only had 8 three-pointers made the entire season. The freshman sprints the length of the court. The Wahoos mob Beekman. I'm watching the game with my kid and my wife at 3-notch. I'm screaming, stoked, at the top of the world, at the top of the Blue Ridge Mountains, so happy because I bleed orange and blue. And then the next day, we get devastated, demoralized, disgusted, crushed by the COVID news. Did you experience that range of emotions? of feeling at the top of the world because March Madness was around the corner and Tony Bennett, who does the things the right way, and his Virginia men's basketball team, and an 18-year-old kid, Reese Beekman, hits the game winner. And I'm sitting here feeling atop Carter's Mountain with joy and happiness. And then COVID. And then the emotions set in. And then you're depressed. You're demoralized. You're wondering if the Wahoos are going to make the big dance. We'll talk about that on the show. Virginia basketball and the 68 teams that are in the big dance are not competing against each other's first. They're competing against COVID first. Gonzaga's number one opponent, COVID-19. Virginia basketball was a whiskers hair. I'm talking like a kitty cat's whiskers hair away from not going dancing in March. That's how close. That topic on the program, the economy is reopening faster than many have expected. What can Charlottesville, Virginia expect from a reopening economy? How about the fact that Maya Restaurant is hiring bartenders, waiters, front of the house and back of the house? The ads are on social media. I love Maya Restaurant. I love Peter Castiglione, one of the best restaurants in the Commonwealth by far. Will restaurants have a difficult time hiring staff once we reopen? Remember, much of the A, B, and C players in the restaurant industry had to leave the industry because of this pandemic. How willing will these A, B, and C players in restaurants, how willing will they be to return to their old jobs? We'll talk about that on today's program. We also have to talk about Crozet and density. Look, I got to clear some things up. I'm all for everyone having a slice of the American dream. And it may be cliche, but the American dream today has home ownership still very much woven into that dream. You cannot deny that. The American dream might be family, love, prosperity, health. But that white picket fence with a backyard and a mortgage payment is woven into the fabric of the American dream. And I'm all for everyone having a chance of their own slice of that pie. But folks, if we add density to communities like Crozet, Virginia, whether it's apartments or more standalone housing, what is that going to do to this sleepy little community about 25 miles from Charlottesville, 20 miles from Charlottesville? What is it going to do? Okay? Because from my standpoint, you got a couple of roads that go in and out of Crozet, and they are often congested. From my standpoint, the entire value proposition for mommies and daddies to pick up their families and move to Western Albemarle is the schools. And if you continue to allow Henley and Brownsville, Meriwether Lewis, Murray, and Western Albemarle to get crowded like Western schools are becoming, the value proposition of living in Crozet starts to get eroded. So here's the question I'm going to ask on the show. Is increased housing density for Crozet, Virginia, at a time when their roads are behind, at a time when their schools are overcrowded, is increasing the density right now in this community a good idea? I'm going to welcome Mark McKinney. We'll ask him to come on the show later this week. This guy knows the community inside and out. He is getting involved from a policy and local government standpoint. Just added to the CAC of Crozet, Mark McKinney, our insider on the I Love Seville show. We'll reach out to him later this week. I'm going to ask this question: new housing density for a community that's already overpopulated from a school standpoint. Is that the right move? Put your thoughts in the feed. If you live there, I want to hear your perspective. I'm going to give you my take in a matter of moments. We have a new owner for Toys R Us. We'll relay who the new owner is as Toys R Us returns to market with stores reopening again. When I was a kid, Toys R Us was the bee's knees. My mom and dad took my brother and I to Toys R Us, and we would spend hours going up and down the aisles. Looking at, and when I was a kid, it was Game Boys. Game Boys were all the rage. You guys remember the Game Boy with the cartridges, that kind of rectangle thing you held in your hand? Love going to look at the Game Boy games at Toys R Us, the sporting opportunities at Toys R Us. So we'll talk about Toys R Us coming back to market today on the show. We have an interview with our friend Keith Smith, the star of Real Talk. Airs Tuesdays and Fridays at 10:15 a.m. on the I Love CVille network. We'll talk what's next for UVA basketball. And folks, we have yet another listing in Belmont, 719 Blenheim Avenue, less than 1,300 square feet. This listing needs a tremendous amount of work, went under contract in less than 4 days at a purchase price that's flirting with $400,000. We're talking a bungalow or a cottage. You know when you start reading in descriptions of real estate listings, this is a bungalow. This is a charming, quaint cottage. You know what that's called? That's called managing brand perception. You know what another word for a charming, quaint cottage is? A small-ass house. Jude, is that right? A charming, quaint cottage in Belmont is a small-ass house. Okay? We'll talk about 719 Blenheim Avenue going under contract. We'll take your comments, your perspective, your concerns, and your positivity in the comment section anywhere you're watching, whether it's Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, LinkedIn, Facebook, ilovecville.com. I can't even keep up. And frankly speaking, I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but I like to do it anyway. This company is on the verge of closing a deal that will add another media brand to our sphere of influence. And I cannot wait to shout from the mountaintops, whether it's the Blue Ridge Mountain, Carter's Mountain, Wendell Woods Mountain, who cares? I can't wait to shout from the mountaintops what the deal we're working on, moments away, maybe a couple days. Stay tuned. All right, let's talk economy, J-Dubs. Let's talk economy. Whether you want to admit this or not, the economy in our country is reopening faster than anyone could ever expect. And whether you're on the side of the fence that we should slow down, not do this, there's still too much unknown, or you're on the other side of the fence that says, let's go 1,000 miles an hour and let's pick up the tempo a little bit faster, I can understand your perspective. There is no right or wrong. The reality is this: whether you like it or not, the economy is reopening at lightning speed. Now, there are two items that are cause for concern from a global macro standpoint. Those two items are what's happening in Germany and Italy right now. If you read the Wall Street Journal or the Financial Times like I do each day, you will notice that Italy and Germany are experiencing a third wave of this pandemic. And both countries are seriously considering a lockdown around the Easter holiday to help curb this third wave that's happening in Italy and Germany. So those are the two causes for concern: Italy and Germany in this third wave. I'm acknowledging that those exist. Fauci pointed to Italy and Germany as a barometer to be mindful of this pandemic and its dangers. Now that I've acknowledged those two causes for concern, I want to look to the other side of the fence, which is the dramatic reopening of this United States economy, the Commonwealth economy, and the economy here in Charlottesville and Central Virginia. Let's talk micro first, Judah. How about the headline from Ted Norris, our friend's Facebook page, with Maya Restaurant hiring? Get that on screen. Look at the screen now. Maya is one of the best restaurants in Virginia. Peter Castiglione, Christian Kelly, and Ted Norris are Hall of Fame restaurateurs and employees in restaurants. Hall of Famers, okay? The economy is sprinting to reopen. And this weather that we're experiencing is putting tailwinds behind it as people have pent-up demand to spend money, get out of their house, and have some sunshine on their bodies. Now, vaccinations are getting out pretty darn quickly. They're getting in people's arms. Are they going at the rate that we would expect? Absolutely not. But let's cut to the chase. It was never going to match our expectations, the vaccines getting in people's arms, because we had such high expectations for this rollout. okay? Whether we want to admit this or not, the second quarter of 2021, which is 17 days away from starting, is looking like it is going to be really, 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 really positive and bright for small and medium-sized businesses everywhere. These are the questions that I'm asking myself while standing in the shower, while sitting on the think tank, while having a Minuteman at home on the back porch, okay? Questions that I'm asking myself. The restaurant industry, the music industry, the hospitality industry, those three sectors got hammered by COVID more than most. Many of the team members from restaurants, music, and hospitality have since found other work. As the economy reopens, and you look at a market like Charlottesville, Virginia, how will the reopening of the economy be impacted by small and medium-sized business owners not finding employees to hire to fill open staff positions? Please remember, before the pandemic hammered and ravaged Charlottesville and Central Virginia, restaurants were struggling to find employees to service their businesses, to run their businesses. That was before the pandemic. I think it's a fair assumption to say that the pandemic has probably impacted the confidence of frontline workers in every industry, certainly in restaurants. That leads me to ask this question. We have a marketplace in Charlottesville that is saturated in restaurants. Depending on who you ask, Charlottesville has is in the top 10 in the nation for restaurants per capita. Before the pandemic, these restaurants were having a hard time finding waiters, busboys, back of the house, bartenders, dishwashers. An extremely difficult time. I dubbed it the Wegmans Effect. Wegmans took a lot of the A, B, and C players from restaurants and put them in grocery store aisles where they had potentially better hours, better pay, and better benefits. This leads me to ask you this question. If restaurants were already struggling to fill staff before the pandemic, what's going to happen now that the pandemic is in the bottom of the 8th inning? What's going to happen now that the pandemic has eroded the confidence of many that work in a frontline industry like restaurants and table service? Okay? As we come back to market, will we have the staff to service the demand? You and I completely understand that as people get vaccinating, we could have something like the Roaring 20s when it comes to people flooding restaurants for food and drink. If, in fact, we have something like the Roaring 20s, and on a side note, let's hope to God that the Roaring 20s now don't end like the Roaring 20s back then did, and that was with the Great Depression. But let's just bear with me now. Let's just say, and I think it's going to happen, and let's just talk Charlottesville. Let's say that as the Maya restaurants of the world, the Citizen Burger bars of the world, the Whiskey Jars of the world, the Three Notches of the world, the Junctions of the world, as they reopen again, and as all of us flood to these restaurants for margaritas, for cold draft beer, for steakhouse burgers, for Christian Kelly's trout, for Wilson Ritchie's barbecue, for Brian Helleberg's steak frites at Petit Pois, as we flock to our favorite restaurants for our favorite meals, will the staff have the depth and roster to service the demand? That's a legitimate question we have to ask. Are we on the cusp of a staff shortage in restaurants, hospitality, and live music because so many of the strong personnel that service these three industries have since switched careers to pay their bills in this 13-month pandemic? Those are legitimate questions we all must ask. And one of the things that we're good at is seeing down the road and having vision and predicting where the market is going to go. Here's a big one for you. We're going to flood these restaurants to show our support because we have pent-up demand for being in quarantine and staying inside. On top of that, many of us have saved money during this pandemic because we're not spending money out at dinner, at happy hour, and utilizing our credit cards. So as we flood the market to get our drink and our food on again, I'm curious to see what happens with these favorite restaurants we go to from a staffing standpoint. Now, I want to talk Florida and get macro again with you. Florida got ripped throughout this pandemic. Florida got ripped because the governor allowed restaurants to open before anybody else. Florida got ripped because the governor allowed people to walk around the state without masks on, even inside without masks on. Florida got ripped because people were allowed to go inside to restaurants and do whatever the hell want, just like it wasn't a pandemic at all. We all know the story of Florida during these 13 months. I got some statistics for you from the Los Angeles Times, the LA Times, that compared Florida's response to the pandemic to California's response to the pandemic. California, I will give you some background, had some of the strictest rules when it came to this pandemic. Strictest rules. Kids were learning at home virtually, public schools were closed, restaurants were closed, one of the strictest states when it came to the pandemic. Florida, on the opposite side of the spectrum, one of the most relaxed states when it came to the pandemic. A couple of highlights from the Los Angeles Times report from over the weekend. I'm going to read verbatim for you. California imposed myriad restrictions that battered the Californian economy and left most public school students learning at home for a year. Florida adapted a more relaxed approach decried by public health experts. Florida allowed indoor restaurant dining. They left mask wearing as an optional situation for adults to choose, and they put children back in classrooms before any other state in the free union. California had roughly 6,000, this is, get ready for these numbers here, okay? More than 32,000 Floridians have died from COVID-19. More than 32,000 Floridians have died from COVID-19. But the LA Times points out that these numbers are very much incomparable to California's death rate. Furthermore, the LA Times pointed out that hospitalizations in Florida and hospitalizations in California were also comparable. Now we have a tale of two states. You got Florida, that's a boom town. The restaurants are thriving. Live music is thriving. Hospitalities are thriving. Tourism is thriving. Florida is a boom town state. The flip side of the coin, California is melting. You have the Joe Rogans leaving for Austin. You have the Elon Musk saying we need to get Tesla out of here. My family in California looking to move as well. So the question we ask, did Florida handle this pandemic the right way? Did California handle the pandemic the right way? The answer to these questions we will not know until sometime down the road, when we have more of a macro look at the data, more of a holistic look at the data. But right now, the data shows that deaths in these states are comparable. Hospitalizations in these states are comparable. COVID infection rates in these states are comparable. And it literally left the newspaper of California asking this question: did California handle this pandemic the wrong way? And should California had gone the way of Florida instead? More on that throughout the week on the I Love Seaville show. I have a feeling when we reflect on this pandemic, months, if not years down the road, we will realize these folks did it the right way, and they certainly did not. That's what we do as humans. It's human nature. All right, the next headline on the program: density in Crozet. I had a back and forth with a friend in this program, Matthew Gillikin, on his Facebook page. Matthew is a phenomenal steward and evangelist and champion of Charlottesville and Central Virginia. He's a man of tremendous thought. He's a man of tremendous research. He's a man of tremendous engagement, Matthew Gillikin. I mean, everything I just said about him. Our back and forth was about density in the crozet market. And this is a topic that has many crozations concerned. I'm going to outline some bullet points, and then I'm going to ask for your perspective and your opinion. Look, people move to crozet because of the schools. We're not moving to crozet for the downtown mall. We're not moving to crozet for the live music scene. We're not moving to crozet for the depth in restaurants, the plethora in restaurants, although there are many good ones out there. We're not moving to crozet because it's close to UVA Hospital, so we don't have a long commute. We're not moving to crozet because we want to walk to the downtown mall or walk to the John Paul Jones Arena or enjoy the amenities of the Monticello Trail or the amenities around the Rivanna Trail. None of those reasons are why you move to crozet. The primary reason why mommies and daddies, especially in the last 20 years, have moved to this community is because of the value proposition of schools. The public schools in Western Albemarle are so damn good that the school system in Western Albemarle, the schools in Western, have been dubbed or nicknamed Stab West, St. Anne's Belfield West. That's how good the public schools are there. Here's the concern you have. As mommies and daddies relocate their children to crozet, the schools have become so overcrowded and saturated that teachers are now begging for help. I bring this to your attention because my fear for many crozetians, if they don't start handling infrastructure issues like roads and schools, they're going to have a big problem. You're now talking about adding apartments or this missing middle housing to crozet. The missing middle is this housing that appeals to millennials, younger folks, folks that are looking for a starter home, folks that are looking that next step above starter. I mean, take the Old Trail market. You got a postage stamp of a lot, and you got homes trading for $500,000 and up in the Old Trail community alone. If we don't manage the infrastructure, the roads, and if we don't solve the overcrowding of schools in crozet, you risk the value proposition of this community being marginalized or diminished. So from my standpoint, and you can call me a libertarian, you can call me a conscious capitalist, you can call me a social entrepreneur, someone who runs a business in the black but does it in a way that leaves the community in a better place than when he first arrived. My business is 13 years old on May 31st of this year. It's our 13th birthday. Every year this business has been in operation, we've enjoyed 10% gross revenue growth at least, minimum, if not more. 2020 was the best year we ever had. The first quarter of 2021 is the best quarter we've ever had, and it's not even close. The reason we have had success in this business is because we listen to our partners. We listen to our customers. We hear to listen and not hear to talk. Understand? Crozetians are saying the roads and the schools must be prioritized before we add density. It's now up to the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors to listen, to hear, and not listen to talk. If you disagree with me, put it in the feed. But I'm going to ask you this question. Have you ever been on 250 driving your kid to Henley or Western before school starts with tractor trailers using the road to get to Interstate 64 and the line to get into Henley and Western all the way down 250 almost toward Ivy, because I've been in that situation. And it ain't pretty. What's your take? Am I reading this the wrong way? Should I be passing along different information to the Board of Supervisors that watch this show? If so, what is that information? And when I make my push for the board, I want to hear what you have to say. Because from my standpoint, increasing density when the roads and schools cannot accommodate it is a disservice to the community. Am I wrong? Toys R Us has a new owner, Keith Smith, in 2 minutes. The emotional roller coaster ride that was the University of Virginia men's basketball team, from Reese Beekman hitting the game winner to COVID-19 beating up the Wahoos. So much to cover on the program, including an intimate cottage, a tiny bungalow, flirting for a $400,000 sales price with only 4 days on the market. Boys and girls, this show is red hot on a Monday on the I Love Seaville Network. My friend Judah Wickhauer, Toys R Us, very quickly. Toys R Us has a second owner since declaring for bankruptcy. Remember, True Kids, the company True Kids, purchased Toys R Us and Babies R Us at bankruptcy. They basically got True Kids, the company, got Toys R Us and Babies R Us for pennies on the dollar when Toys R Us filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. True Kids bought the brand and the intellectual property at bankruptcy. Today, a new company, WHP Global, has purchased Toys R Us and Babies R Us. Here's the intriguing thing. WHP Global, the new owner of Toys R Us, do you know what business they're in? They're not in the business of toys. They're not in the business of babies. They're not in the business of bouncy balls, of Captain America. They're not in the business of Hulk. They're not in the business of Tonka trucks or Matchbox cars or N64s or Nintendo Switches. You know what they're in the business of? WHP Global is an advertising agency, a brand management company. A brand management company and an advertising agency just purchased Toys R Us and Babies R Us. And this brand management company and advertising agency is now taking Toys R Us back to market. And guess what they're going to do? They're going to optimize their brand on Facebook, on Instagram, Pinterest, TikTok, Snapchat, LinkedIn, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iTunes, and on the Toys R Us website. Who else does that? You know what WHP Global said they're going to do? They're going to take the Toys R Us brand and create digital toy stores for Toys R Us on social media. Who else does that for his clients in town? It's interesting. As we head into this world in 2021 of this thing being in everyone's hands, iPhones, as we head into this world of ubiquitous digital and social media, the brands and the businesses that are able to adapt digitally and socially to the world we live in are the ones that will have success. Just like taking a show from TV and radio and broadcasting it in a studio that you own, on cameras that you own, through a network that you own, in a building that you own, and taking clients that otherwise were getting middled through media companies and then bringing them in-house to your own network. A Toys R Us that has a digital toy store on Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, TikTok, LinkedIn, YouTube, and anywhere else where children and moms are will have tremendous success. The idea that you can just go into a brick and mortar and buy a Matchbox car, a Tonka truck, a bouncy ball, a stuffed animal, or an inflatable bounce house for your kid, those days are numbered. I buy stuff like this on my phone, and I expect the product on my step in 48 hours. And so do you. A couple more things I want to get to before Keith Smith. I'm going to talk real estate in Belmont, 719 Blenheim Avenue to be specific. I'm going to talk Tony Bennett and the coaching job he's done, because I think it's one of the best he's ever had in his career. I'm going to talk the disparity between the Kansas Jayhawks and the Virginia men's basketball team when it comes to COVID-19. Both Kansas and UVA were bounced from their conference tournaments because of this pandemic. Kansas somehow is able to practice and play right now. The UVA cannot. We potentially, this Virginia men's basketball team, could go into this first round matchup with 0 practice under our belt in the week leading up to the game. And pretty much Tony Bennett walking his team through what to expect against its opponent through Zoom as opposed to in person. And I got another question for you. The referees that ref the ACC basketball tournament, the Jamie Lucks of the world, these guys are able to ref a Duke basketball game, a UVA-Syracuse game, and they do it without masks on. Yet it's the players and the coaches that get popped for the pandemic. The referees who are around the players and the coaches, we hear nothing about them. We just see them continuing to ref basketball games. Explain this to me. How do the referees ref basketball games, UVA and Syracuse, and not get popped for COVID? Explain this to me. Syracuse matched up with the University of Virginia men's basketball team in the ACC semifinal. It was a hell of a freaking basketball game, right? In the ACC quarterfinal, excuse me. Explain this to me. How did no one from Syracuse get popped with COVID, contact tracing, or this pandemic? You got 8 or 9 players who played for Virginia, 8 or 9 who played for Syracuse, and you're telling me no one from Q's got what UVA had? Does that leave you scratching your head? And how about the referees? Referees ref the Duke game. Duke got bounced with COVID. Referees ref the UVA game. UVA got bounced with COVID. They didn't get popped with anything pandemic, COVID related. They're not missing anything. Does that leave you scratching your head? It leaves me scratching mine. J-Dubs, I'm reaching out to Keith Smith, star of Real Talk right now. Keith Smith, Yes Team Realtors, Yes Realty Partners. I'm excited to welcome Keith to this program on a glorious, glorious Monday here in Charlottesville in Central Virginia. Still to talk basketball, still to talk football, and not football, still to talk NCAA tournament. A lot to cover. He's on the line, J-Dubs. Keith Smith, Que Pasa Chico, how are you?
Que pasa, amigo? I've got like a zillion notes, man. You are on fire today.
I am on fire.
Can't keep up.
I'm on fire. So my friend, where do we start? Show is yours.
Yeah, I've been going through all these different notes. I don't know where the heck to start. One of the things is this whole conversation you were having about the restaurants, and it's funny, we have some of the same mutual friends, and they're struggling with hiring. I think even with the American Rescue Plan that's going to come in, where $25 billion of it's going towards restaurants to help them hire folks. I wanted to put it in a little bit perspective. I went through this between 2008 and 2010, right? And that's exactly what you explained is exactly what happened. All those, remember the real estate housing bubble that popped at that particular point in time. What happened was everybody that was hanging drywall, everybody that was, all these mechanics went to work for Walmart, right?
Walmart distribution.
There you go. Inside, yeah. They're not cold, they're not hot, they're not wet. They're getting paid 15, 20 bucks an hour, health insurance, all that stuff. And that was part of the reason, if we talked about this on the show all the time, about the struggle of the ramp up, right? We went from 2 million units in production down to 400,000 or 500,000, and it's taken 13 years to get up to that point. It's because those jobs never came back, right? Well, would you want to be sucking drywall dust or working in a nice condition factory, getting health benefits, getting all that stuff? So it's an interesting point that you brought up. My memory bank started kicking in. You know, yes, sometimes I have memory issues because I'm old. You can go ahead and say it.
You're not old. This is why I love this guy. I freaking love this guy. The chemistry is already clicking right now, and it's through Skype. That's why we bring him on the show, because he's so freaking smart and he drops knowledge bombs. So what happened if you're comparing the 2008, 2010 housing crisis, when the supply chain got dramatically impacted with employees not coming out to jobs because they found something else to do? If you're comparing it to restaurants, because the guys I'm talking to, many of your friends as well, are like, we're not sure what we're going to do to get this restaurant back on board because we don't have any staff to run it. How long did it take before things got back to normal, Keith?
Well, we're not back to normal. There you go. It's been 13 years. We're not back to normal. We are underproducing and still underproducing. And I think, just to dovetail to some of your conversation earlier about the 5% in Albemarle County, look, let's just face it. What's going to happen, people are going to what? Drive.
Till you qualify.
Until they qualify, right? And this is an ongoing conversation we're having, and you enlightened me to this, and I've been digging into this whole EV evolution, electric vehicle evolution. Is just going to grow. Heck, I just filled my truck up at close to $3 a gallon. It's going to be $4 before you know it. I think before summer we're going to be knocking on $4, and that's going to have an impact on the economy. But you know, at the end of the day, this is what's happening. The developers and the market are going to the path of least resistance. We know this because we talk about it. There's some projects that I'm helping folks with that are going to be potentially as much as 1,000 building lots over the next 12, 24, 36 months, depending on processes. But that's what they're doing. They're going outside of that particular area.
What is, Keith, what is going on with the supply chain of new construction and the staff that gets new construction to market? You know a hell of a lot more about this than me. I'm talking about the brick masons, the drywall guys, the carpenters, the trim guys. I mean, are they creeping out of the business as well, or are they still very much in the business?
No, they're in the business. Who's in the game right now is overworked, right? We got a supply and demand scenario in that, and so who's in the game now. But what I was referring to back in the 08, I don't call it a crisis. I call it a depression, because that's what it was. At least to me, it was. The pool of folks never came back into that, and I think I'm trying to equate that to the restaurant industry. It's gonna if they found another job that is a little, let's say, easier. I've never worked in a restaurant, so I don't know what that work is like. But if we would equate it to hanging drywall or something to that effect, they just didn't want to come back and do that. Why would I do that? Why would I leave this nice, warm, comfy job and go and deal with the elements, right? So I think they're going to struggle. I may be wrong. I've been wrong probably more times than I've been right.
No, that's not true. You have vision as well. This man has the gift of seeing down the road as well. I mean, he very much has that gift. Keith Smith, Yes Team Realtors. Keith, density and crozet. That's a hot topic. Where do you want to go on that one?
It's a hot topic. I just want to remind you and remind the viewers that we talk about roads all the time, that the local jurisdictions don't control that, right? This is controlled by VDOT, Virginia Department of Transportation, and there's a process by which there has to go through, which is called Smart Scale, which is the ability to go ahead and get road improvements. And it's kind of and we're going to try to bring some transportation experts. We're going to do a roundtable, bring some VDOT folks in, maybe bring in Brad Sheffield in. But in the simple terms, one of the criteria for Smart Scale is having a rezoning. So, for instance, I was directly involved with the roundabout at Route 53 and 618. I helped that process through on that. The only reason we floated up to #1 in the state frankly, was because there was a development being rezoned that was attached to it, and that was a criteria. So smart scale, there's, you get, if you have so many items in a column, and that's how they float up to the top. It's a rather complicated process, but at the end of the day, so it's kind of a catch-22. Roads won't get improved unless there's improved density coming up or projects in the pipeline. It's a little complicated to explain on a couple of minute conversation.
Can I ask you this question? Can I ask you this question? Because you were instrumental, and he's going to be humble here. You were instrumental in helping get that roundabout to Zion's Crossroads. And so much so that the roundabout paid you back by getting you a speeding ticket a couple of days after the roundabout came to market. But can you give us the flip book of how the...
No, time out. You had to go there?
I had to
really?
Go. Can you give us the flip book of how the roundabout happened?
Yeah, so it's a long process. It's several years, but basically what happened was there was, in order for it to happen, there was a developer who was developing a project, which hopefully we'll start seeing some product coming out of the ground here this calendar year, homes and lots and so forth and so on. But in order to happen, he had to dedicate about $750,000 worth of property over to the state to do that. But it's it's very spider-like, right? And if that didn't happen, if I wasn't able to convince that property owner to give this money to the state and actually file a rezoning application, we would have been on the bottom of the list, and we would not have this rezoning. Again, it's not about me, it's just a process kind of thing on it. So it's pretty important. So we're going to work on that. I've been talking to some of my
Is that a proffer? Is that a proffer?
Yeah, kind of. It actually wasn't in this case. It was a straight up dedication. He was doing the right thing regardless if the project was approved or not. So, because there was several debts there, and he was trying, he's a property owner around the area, and he wanted to do the right thing. The point is that that was part of the process. So you can't, there's a chicken and egg thing, and you talk about this all the time. What comes first, right? Do you build the roads first? Well, you really can't build the roads first because VDOT is the one that builds these roads. Now, we go back to the schools. Well, now the school's a different story now. The schools are controlled by the Board of Supervisors, and that's a whole different animal, and that is part of what they call the CIP, Capital Improvement Plan. So there's two different buckets, two different paths, but you're 100% right. Now, that's something the county controls, right? And that's something like Brookwood, I believe there was a proffer from the developers who did that they're going to build a school. I don't know the particular details of it, but you're 100% right. Two very different paths on that, Jerry.
Help me understand this. I learn from you twice a week, 3 times a week on Mondays. I've missed the Mondays the last couple times here. Help me understand this. You know this better than anyone. You're in the real estate game. Mom and dads are relocating to Crozet because they love their kids so much, and the schools are so darn good. That's fair, right? Okay.
Okay. No argument yet.
Here's the question I have for you. If we're at basically capacity or beyond, do we risk eroding the Valprop that is the schools and why people move there?
Great question. If I knew the absolute answer to that, I'd probably own the place we go to visit from time to time. Look, the reality of it is yes, and that's why I said this chicken and egg thing. And none of this stuff is single. It's just one path. I say this all the time. One thing never affects one thing; it affects 10 other different things. So you have to look at it in a holistic manner. The answer is ultimately yes, right? I mean, if the schools degrade, then in theory, the values potentially could degrade in that area. I think that's the question you're trying to ask.
That's the question, right? I'm trying to ask. That's what the parents are worried about. And the parents are primarily worried about that, not because of the house, but because of their kids.
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, and so look, it's like anything else, right? I preach on this all the time on my show and any opportunity I can get, from a rezoning and land development and building and construction and real estate end of it. Get involved, right? Show up in this case, at the school board meetings. Get involved. Share. Now keep in mind, you have to be willing to have a conversation with somebody who has a different opinion than you, right? That doesn't, let's not do a cancel culture here, guys, right? Let's just have an actual debate with somebody and have a conversation with it on both sides. But get involved, man. Go to the meetings. Matthew's a great guy. He's constantly involved in it. But yeah, get involved. Don't count on somebody like me telling you something. Get in, hear it firsthand.
Let me follow-up question to that. When you're dealing with buyers, especially buyers of parents, where does the schools, from a priority standpoint, rank in their pecking order?
So that's an interesting question. Technically, we're not supposed to give our personal opinion on the schools. That's one of it. But what we do, and we talk about this all the time, is to be the source of the source, right? So what we can then is give them information where they can go dig up the information on the schools. I can't say this school system is better than that school system. I'm not allowed to do that. Legally can't do that. But I can give you information where you can go out and read the rankings and then make your own decision. This is the right place for my children to go to school, right? And then we would help them find something in that particular area. But we will never go ahead and say one school system is better than the other. We don't. That's kind of like asking me, do I like a light fixture better than another light fixture?
Okay, then let me try a different way to ask the question. How do quality schools drive real estate value?
Again, I think I'm going to have to almost answer it the same way.
Okay.
In theory, if you take a look at a appraisal, they don't talk about schools.
Okay.
So there's a market perception, and then there's reality on the end of it. Look, at the end of the day, if school system is important to you and your family, that's fine. Look, Keith and Yona don't have kids in the school system. Right. So I want to move to Crozet because I want to be close to a vineyard. I'm not impacting the school system, right? So it's what's important to that individual and their life, and our goal is to help give them the tools to make the best decision possible.
Good answer. Third part of
the
question.
Did I keep myself out of jail on that one?
You handle it so well.
You do this to me all the time.
Well, I do this to you because I know you can handle it. The man's got serious game here.
So I got to add something real quick.
Okay.
So on Friday, I wore the bow tie and all that stuff. Do you want to know what my daughters were saying I looked like over the weekend?
Well, your daughter in Seattle was watching you on Friday, and she gave you props for always being the best dressed Smith.
Oh, I know that. But after the show, she said, you look like Colonel Sanders with the mustache.
And what did you say to her?
This is a family show. I won't say.
Okay, last question on this, and then you take us anywhere you want to go on Real Talk tomorrow. It's safe to say that Crozet in the last 20 years has boomed.
Oh, no doubt.
How much?
So was Monticello.
Right. How much of that boom is tied to the quality schools?
I mean, if you're asking my personal opinion, I think a lot of it has to do with the schools.
Yeah.
Right. But we've also had the same boom at Lake Monticello, right? It's.
Can I counter with you? I'm just you and I playing for the sake of a talk show. Crozet boomed because of the schools.
Well, I think that's one of the reasons.
One of the reasons.
To say that was the sole reason would be disingenuous.
I agree. Okay. One of the reasons I agree with him. One of the reasons Crozet boomed is because of the schools. I would say one of the reasons Lake Monticello has boomed is because of a price point that potentially does not exist as much in Central Virginia.
I would agree with that, but to follow up as a counterpoint to that, we also built probably the best new high school out there several years ago.
Good point.
Cutting edge, as 1,000-seat auditorium, high technology.
So are you saying then that schools drive real estate value?
That's not what I said.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Are you trying to get other people watch? Are other people watching this? Are we going to get into trouble here?
Okay, I'm just talking about from Mrs. Miller's standpoint, my wife,
Yeah.
who would absolutely do anything for our kid.
But that's important to you and your family.
True.
And that's what our role is to help you achieve that goal. If you have determined that the Western Albemarle school system is the best for you and your family, best on that, my role is to try to help you get there, or any real estate agent's role is to get that. On the other hand, if you think Lake Monticello is because, hey, I can get a certain price point, but I can go fishing, I can go on the beaches, I can play golf, and oh, by the way, I have a high accredited school system, frankly. Yeah, cool. Then that's our job to help you achieve your goals and your objectives.
I absolutely.
How did I do?
Oh, dude, you handled that one so well. I'm going to say this for everyone to hear. Not only is this guy my friend, but I trust this guy. And I've seen the trust he's built with his clients. Like, they not only do the transaction with he and his wife, they then send adjective cards with ways to improve his vocabulary to him in the mail. And I won't say who the name of that person is, but that just shows you that it's not just the transaction, it's the relationship with Keith and Yona. Is that safe to say there?
Well, she just wanted to bust my chops.
She wanted to bust your balls. I know her now. She wanted to bust your balls.
I'm just thinking that's what that was. Learn how to speak English, stupid. I think that's what she was saying.
My friend, how about tomorrow?
Yeah, tomorrow it's just going to be me and you. I'm looking forward to it. We're gonna explore this coming soon new category that we have on it. We're going to spend a little bit of time. I've kind of figured out what I need to do so I can stay out of MLS jail on this end of it. And we're going to focus on a couple of coming soon listings that we have everybody's permission to do. So we're just going to talk about that a little bit, and then you and I. Do our Batman and Robin routine. Have fun.
I love it. Dude, has anyone told you recently you look like a bronze god that's been kissed by the sun?
No, that's not what they said. They said I look like...
Colonel Sanders.
Colonel Sanders.
All right, you heard it from me. Bronze god that's been kissed.
Didn't Colonel Sanders have a goatee?
Yeah,
too?
and you're also 100 pounds lighter than him. And you don't make fried chicken, do you? Do you make fried chicken?
You'd be surprised what I can do.
You make fried chicken?
I could cook. I'm a pretty decent cook.
As good as Barbara Lundgren's fried chicken?
No, nobody's as good as Barbara.
Yeah, her fried chicken was darn good. My friend.
But I can try.
You could try.
Hey, great show, great stuff. I had a couple other notes, but we'll tackle them tomorrow. So come by and see us tomorrow at 10:15. I
can't wait to see you tomorrow.
Same here, brother.
Take care.
Be well. Thanks for everything.
Keith Smith, guys. Keith Smith is A+++ people. 10:15 tomorrow, Real Talk on the I Love Seaville Network, presented by Yes Realty Partners and Yes Team Realtors. Trusted name of the game is Yes Realty Partners or Yes Team Realtors. I've literally seen firsthand what they do for their clients and how happy their clients are after working with Keith and Yona and Yes Realty Partners. A couple things I want to get to, Judah Wickhauer, before we get out of here. Let's talk UVA basketball first, and then we'll close with the bungalow and the charming intimate cottage, my friend. All right, UVA basketball and the emotional roller coaster ride that we all have experienced. We watched the Virginia men's basketball team battle toe-to-toe in a slugfest with Syracuse. Buddy Boeheim, Jim Boeheim's son, in that game, this dude could not miss. He was red hot, finished with over 30 points for Syracuse. When it was all said and done, Kie Clark, one of my favorite Virginia men's basketball players of all time, drives the lane and kicks out to a wide open Reese Beekman. Reese Beekman at that point had made 8 three-pointers on the entire season. And here a freshman, was getting the ball with less than a second and a half left on the clock. And this freshman, this first year, this 18-year-old, was expected to hit the game-winning jump shot. Lo and behold, Reese Beekman tickles the twine, and he sprints the length of the floor with Hauser, Huff, Clark, and the rest of the Wahoos chasing him, ready to mob him with joy. They catch Beekman. They jump on him. I am crying tears of happiness. I look at my wife. She is elated, and our almost 3-year-old son is watching the game with us, and he's terrified because mom and dad are jumping up and down, screaming at the top of our lungs because the Wahoo men's basketball team just got a victory in the ACC tournament. Soon thereafter, we get the news that someone on the Virginia men's basketball team has COVID. We don't know who it is. And unfortunately, UVA Hoops has to miss the rest of the ACC tournament, a tournament they undoubtedly could have won. We were left biting our nails. We were left sweating. We were left wondering if this team was going to get invited to the big dance or if COVID-19 was going to unceremoniously end this season for this team. Tony Bennett goes on record and says, we will do the best we can with what we got. I learned that phrase from Mr. Greg Wells, the owner of Interstate Pest and Service Companies and Valley Termite and Pest Control. Do the best you can with what you got. I'm going to repeat it again. Do the best you can with what you got. That's what success is. Every day, waking up and doing the best you can with the tools or the resources you have in front of you. Coach Bennett said that's what we're going to do. So now this team, over the next week, is going to meet via Zoom to discuss the game plan. They'll allow players on a by-themselves basis to put up some jump shots at the John Paul Jones Arena, but no practice, no team walkthrough, isolation and quarantine. If there's any coach in America that can do the best he can with what he got, it's Tony Bennett. And he proved this in 2019 with winning the national championship. You do the best you can with what you got. You lost to UMBC the year before. You do the best you can with what you got. You win the national championship the next year. Now, all of us, it's natural human instinct. We are left scratching our heads, wondering, who is the Virginia men's basketball player who has COVID? Folks, we're going to find out this weekend when that individual is not in the starting lineup, does not come off the bench to play, or is a bench warmer and doesn't play at all. We'll find out this weekend. Are we all asking ourselves, good God, is this Sam Hauser? Good God, is this Jay Huff? Good God, is this Kihei Clark? Good God, is this Trey Hunter Three Sticks? Sure. We're all wondering if the COVID player is one of the big four or someone in the starting lineup. That's human natural reaction because we care about this team so much. Furthermore, we get nostalgic of that loss to UMBC. Do you remember that loss to UMBC? DeAndre Hunter broke his wrist, and DeAndre could not play in that game. If DeAndre had played against UMBC, would we have won? I can't answer that question, but I can say that UVA would have had a better chance of winning if DeAndre Hunter, who's a soon-to-be all-star for the Atlanta Hawks in the National Basketball Association in the NBA, I can say that UVA had a better chance of beating UMBC with DeAndre on the floor than him with a broken wrist on the sideline. That's safe to say. So Wahoo Nation is asking themselves, do we have another DeAndre Hunter situation with one of our key players not being able to play in the first round of the tournament? And that's a fair question to ask. And now we just have to be patient and wait and see. But if there's one coach in America that can do the best he can with what he has, it's Coach Tony Bennett. It's Coach Tony Bennett. It's Coach Tony Bennett. I sincerely mean that. I'd follow that guy through fire, and so would his players. All right, last item on the notebook on a great day to be alive. I mean, it is a gorgeous day to be alive, isn't it? 719 Blenheim Avenue, Judah. Let's get it on screen. We have a beautiful bungalow here, a charming, intimate cottage. That's called branding. This beautiful bungalow, this charming, intimate cottage is 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, 1,239 square feet. It had a list price on Friday or Thursday of last week of $395,000. By Sunday, it was under contract. It was changed from listed to pending. Here you got a charming bungalow, a beautiful bungalow, an intimate cottage that was built in 1925 that is on a postage stamp size of a lot. I'm talking 0.1. We got a home that in 2013, I'm going to give you this statistic. Judah, this is going to blow your mind. Are you ready for this? Mm-hmm. This home in 2013 sold for $177,000. 177 in 2013, Judah. Not even 8 years later, This home is trading at roughly $400,000. 177K in 2013 to nearly 400,000 in 2021. Now, before we jump to conclusions, we can understand that the owner of the home put a lot of money into it. And when you put money into rehabbing something, the price is going to go up. But from 2013 to 2021, you're going from 177K to roughly $400,000 for a beautiful bungalow, a charming, intimate cottage that is under 1,300 square feet, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, and a postage stamp of a lot. If that is not a microcosm of the housing market in Charlottesville and Central Virginia, I don't know what is. When beautiful bungalows and charming, intimate cottages can basically 2.5x in sales price in 8 years, you know this market is red hot and lacking affordability. Beautiful bungalow, charming, intimate cottage, built in 1925, within walking distance of the downtown mall. It's crazy, man. Tomorrow's show is going to be good. We're efforting, I'm this close to finalizing the details of the Kathy Galvin Democratic debate on this network. Former Councilor Kathy Galvin is going to moderate the debate. Carl Brown, Brian Pinkston, Juan Diego Wade, and Yaz Washington in studio for this Democratic debate. Now your comments for the show. If you've left comments, put them in now. If you want to hear your perspective heard, put it in now, okay? Now's the time to do it. I'm also this close to finalizing a deal with expanding this network with a print publication in town. It's a big-time announcement on the near horizon. All right, comments. Vanessa Parkhill. Vanessa Parkhill. I love when you watch this program, Vanessa Parkhill. You say hi to that quarterback of a son you have that is just a fantastic representation of the Parkhill family. Please, Vanessa, please say hi to Lee, okay? Please. Jerry, you make an excellent point about the officials in the basketball games. Teams get put on quarantine, but not officials. It doesn't make sense. Jamie Luckey was reffing basketball games without a mask on. Jamie Luckey refs the Duke basketball game and the UVA basketball game. How do the referees not get quarantined, or how do they not get impacted by this pandemic? How did Syracuse not get impacted by this pandemic when they were playing Virginia? How did something from explain this to me. Explain contact tracing to me. Judah, maybe you can help me understand this as well. Syracuse is on the same basketball court as Virginia. Virginia's team has to quarantine because of contact tracing. But Syracuse basketball, who's boxing out Virginia basketball, doesn't get impacted by the pandemic, doesn't get a case, doesn't get COVID, or doesn't have to do contact tracing or quarantine. Can you explain that to me? Anybody? Vanessa says, if we are to believe the likes of Elon Musk and Joe Rogan are leaving California behind for more business-friendly opportunities and independent lifestyles in Texas, they will need to remember that when they go to the ballot box. Amen. Rogan was sprinting for Austin and out of California. Jason Burke says, he's watching in Los Angeles. Jason Burke, what's up, amigo? In Los Angeles, we entered 25% indoor dining allowance today. Congratulations, Jason Burke, who's watching in LA. Los Angeles, 25% indoor dining today. Neil Williamson shares a link about Crozet, Virginia population. Neil, I would love to have you on the show. We'd love to have you on the show, Neil Williamson. You got a big, beautiful brain, Neil Williamson. I just stay out of your way and let you talk. Aaron King, welcome to the broadcast. Rosemary Postel, hello. Camilla Priest, hello. Welcome to the broadcast. Jason Burke, 25% indoor capacity in LA is awesome. Carrie Rock, watching the show. Would there be an issue of finding employees if restaurants paid a static wage over the traditional below minimum wage pay? Good question, Carrie Rock. Good question. That gets back to the $15 minimum wage argument. Many restaurateurs are opposed to the $15 minimum wage. They say they will lay people off if we have to implement a $15 minimum wage. On top of that, we will raise menu prices. That's a topic for a different show. Maybe I bring that up next week. Great point, Carrie Rock. All right, that's the program, Judah. Hey, J-Dubs. Good job.
Thank you.
Seriously. Judah Wickhauer is A-plus people. A++. A+++. He's the director of the show. It's presented by Ting Fiber Internet, Judah. Let's get that on screen. Save $288 on Ting Fiber at iloveseville.ting.com. The best of the best powers this network, and it's Ting Fiber Internet. My name is Jerry Miller. I'm out of here. Thank you for joining us. A gorgeous month. Hey, before I leave, remember this, okay? We are above the mud. Do we have reason to complain? Do we have reason to say 2020 was the worst year ever? Sure. But you know what? We're above the mud. It's a glorious day to be alive. We'll find some positivity. Latch onto that positivity and watch it snowball in your life. Because that's what I do. Find an iota of positivity, highlight it, latch onto it, and other positivity follows. That's the show. I'm Jerry Miller.